Can we go now, please?
Thank you, and welcome to this evening's extraordinary Cabinet meeting, the first of 2021, hosted by Bassetlaw District Council. Given the ongoing challenging situation that we all face following the outbreak of COVID-19, the law was changed to allow for the council to host meetings virtually rather than requiring councillors to be present in the committee chamber. And this keeps everyone safe by maintaining social distancing and also allows business to be conducted in an appropriate manner. Now, it's important that all councillors can hear each other. So in a moment, I will invite Cabinet members to, in alphabetical order, to introduce themselves and also in doing so, test that everyone can hear and take part as they need to. So if we could turn first to Councillor Dukes.
Here, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Evans.
Here, Chair.
Thank you. My connection seems to be working just fine for now. Councillor Lee.
Present, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Scawthorne.
Here, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Shaw.
Present, Chair.
Thank you. And Councillor White.
Hey, Chair, my internet's gone down, so I'm with you via my mobile, so hopefully I can stay with you.
Not a problem. Thank you very much for the for doing your best there to continue to take part. Also, we have a number of liaison members that join us in the meeting and take part as required. So first, I'll turn to Councillor Brand.
Good evening, Chair.
Thank you, and Happy New Year. And Councillor Fielding.
Present, Chair.
Thank you. And Councillor Quigley.
Present.
Thank you very much. Also, we have a number of officers that support us in the meeting, and so I'll turn first to Mr. Neil Taylor.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening. Mr. Dave Armiger.
Yes, good evening, Chair.
Thank you. Mr. David Hill.
Yes, good evening, Chair.
Thank you. Steve Wormald.
Yes, good evening, Chair.
Thank you. And Alison Craig.
Here, Chair.
Thank you. Also supporting the meeting, Linda Dorr.
Linda, can you unmute your microphone, please?
Yes, I was having problem unmuting that. Good evening, Chair.
and that was virtual meeting bingo to Mr. Lavender for the first use of can you unmute your microphone, please?
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And I don't believe that there are any apologies for the meeting this evening, but I'll defer to Linda on that.
That's correct, Chair. We don't have any apologies for this evening's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, if during the course of the meeting we do lose connectivity or the meeting becomes inquorate for any reason or the live streaming for some reason goes down, then what we will do is to adjourn for a few minutes in order to make sure that everyone can reconnect and we can get things up and running once again. Now, there are, I understand that there are confidential items on the agenda this evening, but I'll just clarify on that. No, I don't believe that is correct.
No, Chair,
so
it's all in open session.
Thank you. So I was just double checking on that, so I'll move on. In addition, what I just want to emphasise also is that given that this is a virtual meeting, there's no corporate responsibility to undertake any fire alarm procedures or such like as we ordinarily would do. However, what I would like to highlight is that the meeting is being live streamed, and so everyone needs to be aware of their actions and take appropriate safety precautions from where they're joining the meeting from. And also, just to help make sure that we can hear each other as best as possible, I just remind everyone if they could mute the microphone when not participating, that would be really great. So first of all, I have agenda item 1, which is apologies, but in reality, none have been received. So I'll just take it at that before then moving on to agenda item 2, which is to receive declarations of interest by members and officers. And I'll just pause at this point to inquire as to whether there are any declarations of interest that need to be raised at this stage. Linda, I'll be surprised if any have been submitted, but I'll see what you have to say.
Yes, I've not received any, Chair. No declarations of interest. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'll just remind everyone that if there is a need or a cause to declare an interest at any point, then just please call out and we'll deal with that accordingly in the appropriate way. Agenda item 3 is the forward plan to be found at pages 5 to 8 of the agenda, and I will ask members of Cabinet if they are happy to approve the forward plan and if there's any dissent from that forward plan as presented. I'll take that as a no dissent and therefore endorsed. I will next move on to agenda item 4, which is a report from the Cabinet member for finance. Although there is a housing, a fair degree of a housing element in this. So first, the housing report that I'll turn to, sorry, agenda item 4A, it is the housing capital programme from 2021 to 22 and running forward to 2025-26. It is a key decision at 794 and to be found at pages 9 to 26. Now, what I will do at this point, I'll just pause for a moment because I do know that Councillor Scawthorne and Councillor Evans will be contributing to this item, and I'll just inquire as to who wishes to speak first on this. I think Councillor Scawthorne's indicated, so I'll turn to you first. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is for members to consider and approve the Housing Capital Programme for 2021-22 to 2025-26. The Capital Programme attached to Appendix 1 has been set in accordance with the profile set out in the Stock Condition Survey, which was carried out in 2019-20, with a further 30% currently being surveyed. By doing this, it will ensure that works are undertaken in a timely manner and therefore mitigate against any future backlog of repairs. The overall capital programme focuses on 5 key areas from the Housing Service Asset Management Plan, agreed by Cabinet in December 2020 and identified in paragraph 3.5 of the report. This contributes to the delivery of the housing priorities set out in the Council Plan. It should be noted that the overall capital programme of 11.497 million for 2021 to 22 does not include any carry forward from the current financial year. It is anticipated that this will amount to approximately 11 million, where the scheme has been delayed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The focus of the programme remains on the modernisation of properties to maintain the decent home standards. The government, in its housing white paper, released on the 17th of November 2020, the Charter for Social Housing Residents, commits itself to reviewing and increasing the standards by the autumn of 2021, including addressing energy efficiency measures. A total of 23.8 million has been identified as a 5-year commitment to maintain this. The Social Housing White Paper has also identified built-in safety as a top priority for social landlords, and as such, the government has committed to providing new legislation to strengthen this. Appendix 1 also shows that a total of 7.8 million has been identified as a 5-year commitment to ensure compliance areas and risk associated with the housing stock are managed. In addition, the White Paper also identifies improving access to and the provision of safe, open green spaces as another key priority. This commitment for works to external areas and exterior of properties and estate environment is for 1.8 million in 2021-22, with an outline total of 11 million invested by the end of 2026. Commitments to meet the Equal Opportunity Act requirements for tenants living with disabilities and further home adaptations are being put forward, with some 540,000 in 2021-22, with a total of 2.7 million by the end of 26. Provision has been made within the Housing Capital Programme for the delivery of 120 units of new build council housing at Ratford Street, Manton, for the period 2020-21 to 2022-23, and a further provision for the sum of 6 million has been included within the programme for the period of 2023-24 to 25-26 to enable further options for new build to be considered. These sums, together with the Strategic Housing Acquisitions Programme, will deliver around 180 additional new council homes for Bassetlaw in the next 5 years, an average of 36 new homes in each financial year. In order to address the housing needs of our increasingly elderly population and ensure that our accommodation provision meets their needs and expectations, a provision of 7.3 million has been included for the refurbishment of 3 of our existing independent living schemes for the period of 2021 to 26. Commencing at Larwood House in 2021-22, our final scheme is scheduled for refurbishment in 26-27. The provision of 100,000 in 2020-21 has been made available for the repairs to the ICT system alone. However, it is now recommended that this sum is increased by a further 150,000 in 2021-22 to support the delivery of a fully integrated repairs and housing management ICT system, which will allow a single view of the customer, enable customers to self-service, and to deliver efficiencies in the way that staff work. A provision of 840,000 has been made to upgrade the warden call system. These are old and have started to reach the end of their useful life, with parts becoming difficult to obtain when a fault is identified. The analogue telephone system will be turned off in 2025, and the council needs to plan for this change now, if it intends to continue to provide the Lifeline system service. Chair, this recommended capital programme, together with the anticipated carry forward amount of 83 million over 5 years, an average of 16.6 million per annum, this is 33 million in excess of the last 5-year capital programme developed by A1 Housing. Chair, I'd like to pass to Councillor Evans now for her part of the report.
Thank you very much. Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Chair. When it comes to funding the capital programme for housing, we are not simply talking about repairs, maintenance and improvements. We are talking about a long-term investment plan based upon a number of considerations leading to an achievable, balanced financial plan that will support the priorities outlined in this report. The first point to make is that the self-financing regime for the housing revenue account makes the housing capital programme significantly dependent on borrowing. Therefore, affordability has to be ensured within the HRA business plan. As you know, the housing capital programme budget for 21-22 is 11.5 million and it's funded by 6.7 million from the major repairs reserve, 4 million from borrowing and 0.8 million of capital receipts. It's important to note that the major repairs reserve, funded by depreciation charges and other revenue sources, is crucially important to the plan, as are value for money savings and the commitment on rents in order to maintain the level of housing quality our tenants deserve. Turning to capital receipts and the right to buy scheme, there has been a significant downturn in the rate of sales in 2021. This is possibly due to the impact of the pandemic and will likely continue into 21-22. It is predicted that only 16 sales will be completed this financial year, compared to the 50 sales expected in line with previous years. Members are aware that receipts are generated in year for one-for-one replacements if sales exceed the original 2012 self-financing assumption of 18 sales. Therefore, the HRA business plan assumptions have been revised due to this downturn. And this is important because additional receipts from right to buys exceeding the figures in the self-financing assumptions can be retained in Bassett law towards the provision of new affordable housing, must be spent within 3 years and require a funding contribution of 70% of the cost from HRA resources. If these retained receipts are not spent, they must be returned to the government along with 4% above base interest rate, and paragraph 3.17 lists the actions to be taken to ensure the receipts stay in Bassett law. As always, Council has to consider affordability and the long-term debt repayments that are built into the business plan over the next 10 years total 21.7 million. These are itemised at paragraph 3.21 and members will note that an artificial debt cap of 132 million has been assumed, and this is to ensure the HRA remains sustainable and self-financing. The current position regarding the HRA debt is shown in the table at paragraph 3.24. As always, there is a direct link between these figures and the level and pace of investment. The overall consideration has to be that the HRA business plan remains affordable, sustainable and self-financing. Consequently, full approval is being sought for the 2021-22 programme only. Approval is sought for subsequent capital programmes on an indicative basis at this stage to be confirmed in succeeding financial years. Chair, there are 3 recommendations.
Thank you very much for those comprehensive outlinings to this report. What I would like to do at this point is just turn to officers, probably in the same way. So if I could turn to Alison Craig, is there anything you wish to add at all, please?
I've nothing to add, Chair, other than this is a very exciting capital programme and the service is very much looking forward to delivering it. I'm happy to take any questions after Mr Hill.
Thank you very much indeed. Mr Hill, anything you'd wish to add at all?
Nothing further to add, Chair, at this stage, but happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much indeed. At this point, I'll turn to members of Cabinet. Well, if I could just turn first to the Chief Executive, who's indicated, and then I'll turn to Cabinet members next. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Greaves. This report is very significant, I think it's fair to say, Chair. And as Councillor Evans has underlined, borrowing is the thing that is going to fund a lot of the improvements that are going to be taken forward. That can only be met if we generate savings from the services that we operate as a council. And I think what members are seeing, and the community and tenants, is that within 18 months of bringing the service back in-house, the services have been able to sustain a lot more borrowing than would have been happening previously, and all the savings that have been generated through the exercise of bringing the service back in-house, and all the good work that the head of housing has done since her appointment, just underlines the council's commitment to tenants, that the council was going to invest more in new council homes, and as Councillor Scotland has said, that is a significant development for the council. And I think you can also see from the report, in terms of the ICT upgrade, that this isn't the end of the story. There are going to be more change. There's going to be more change, more efficiency that will be generated through the investment that the council's putting in. And I've got no doubt, after we've been through the staffing situation, all the contracts, and now the IT support structure, that there'll be more savings that will enable the council to support more borrowing, which will enable more homes to be built. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. If I could turn next to Cabinet colleagues, I'll turn to Councillor Dukes first, and then Councillor Scotthorne. Oh, sorry, Councillor Shaw. Sorry, apologies.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd just like to reiterate what the Chief Executive just said. I think this really does show the sense that was made out of bringing the service back in-house. I think the hard work of both officers and Cabinet members to make sure that happened, and other councillors as well, and indeed tenants, to make the transition as smooth as it has been. I know there have been some bumps along the way, but I think it has really worked out well, and this programme starts to see the fruit of that being handed back out to our tenant base. I'm very excited by this programme, but particularly by the IT. I think it's something that we need to look forward to. It will improve the lot of our tenants, but it will also improve their living standards. And I think it's here that I start to say that we need to continue to chivvy the government for affordable broadband for everybody. If not free broadband, broadband should now be seen as a utility, not as a luxury. If we've learned nothing from this pandemic, it is that people require a decent connection to be able to connect to the world, to their school, to their teachers. And it is really important that our council stock and our affordable housing does indeed have that connectivity. And I will be doing all that I can to make sure that the residents of Bassetlaw receive that through the local plan and beyond. And any failure in government to deliver those needs to be challenged vociferously. We cannot have another reduction like we had in the last couple of weeks in the proposed rollout of broadband across the country. It has to be up front and centre in any programme of development post-COVID. So, and I will keep trumpeting that as long as I'm sitting here. So thank you for this report from everybody. I think it is really exciting, and I'm looking forward to seeing everything come to fruition.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Shaw, and then I think Councillor Brand has just indicated.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, when Alison said it's exciting, I thought it was exciting. Thank you very much for the report. I think we're very proud of our social housing in Bassetlaw, and it was really great to read about the safe green open spaces, and that was already identified in the stock survey, and that's really brilliant. Also the disabled adaptations, and I really good to see that we're looking at the Warden Call upgrade and the new homes. I think the whole purpose and what we're doing with social housing and council housing in Bassetlaw is absolutely fantastic. And thank you both, Mr. Hill and Alison Craig for their report, and also councillors for the work they're doing with the portfolios. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. I'll turn to Councillor Brand next, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to pick up some words that Councillor Evans had said. She described this as a long-term investment plan, which it is in bricks and mortar, but it's also a long-term investment plan in our tenants and their families and people's lives. And I think that all that's in this report supports that. And I think it's a terrific report. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. I'll just at this point just ask if Councillor Scawthorne or Evans or officer colleagues want to respond to the any of the comments that have been made at all. Councillor Scawthorne.
Yeah, just to thank you for all colleagues that, and especially all the finance and everything that's been put into this. It has been a long journey and there has been ups and downs, but I think the council have all pulled together, right from the people doing the repairs, right through all the housing officers and everything, just to make sure that we have got a good housing service and we are prudent in what we save and what we are going to invest in future. And like Alison says, and Councillor Shaw, it is an exciting time, although it's on the back. It's at the back of the floods and the pandemic, which has seen a lot of people in Bassetlaw suffer, that we've still got enough in the coffers to carry on with the work we do in our housing service.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Evans.
Chair, I'm now getting worried because I've heard the word exciting used several times. I can't promise that the other reports will be anything like exciting.
Well, there won't be no negatives associated with that. I don't know if from Alison Craig or David Hill, there's anything you want to contribute at all on top of what's been mentioned.
Nothing from me, thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Nothing, only to reiterate what's already been said. You know, it's a quantum leap from where we were 2 or 3 years ago, having a £50 million flat capital programme, to increasing it by something like 4 to 6% now. And that's only been possible by the rationalisation of the housing service over the past 2 to 3 years, which has released that capacity to be able to borrow. So yeah, good news story.
No, thank you very much. There's no doubt whatsoever that this is when the rubber hits the road in terms of the change that's been made and the additional funding that we're now able to leverage into the stock and to support our tenants, it's like a quantum leap, quite frankly. So this is a real demonstration of a strategically sensible decision, and we're seeing the delivery coming through of the choice that we felt that was important and that tenants supported us with. So I'm very pleased to see that this is the reality of the decisions that we're making coming through now. So it really is fantastic. What I'll do, I'll turn at this point to the recommendations that have been outlined to be found at page 17 of the report, 6, 1, 2 and 3, and ask if there is any of Cabinet members, if there's any dissent from the adoption of those recommendations. No, in which case I'll take them as agreed. Thank you very much indeed. Next, I will turn to another finance report, and it will be agenda item 4B, Housing Revenue Account Budget 2021 to 22, going through to future years as previously. Key decision 842, to be found at pages 27 to 35. I believe on this one I'm simply turning to Councillor Evans, although I'll be corrected if I'm wrong on that. I see that I'm right, and I'll hand over to Councillor Evans. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Members are aware that the Housing Revenue Account is a single service account funded by tenants' rent income for social housing, which means any decisions on income and expenditure have a direct impact on both the levels of tenant services and investment in our housing stock. The self-financing regime demands that expenditure is supported by rental income, and this is the main consideration in the 40-year business plan. The 21-22 HRA budget is detailed at Appendix 1, and it should be noted that 1. Any favourable variance from the expected 2021 outturn is transferred to the major repairs reserve, unless the outturn is significantly different to what was planned. And 2. Depreciation represents a cash charge to the HRA, which is also transferred to the major repairs reserve for future capital expenditure or debt repayment. And 3. The level of depreciation chargeable is not enough to fund the capital programme and the repayment of debt. Therefore, a voluntary contribution of 2.1 million is required in 21-22. Chair, the Housing Revenue Account started this current financial year with a predicted surplus of 312,000. We are now expecting that surplus to be reduced to 44,000, and this represents a significant downturn. The government has not as yet offered any financial support to housing revenue accounts. Members can see the estimated balance in the table at paragraph 3.7. Turning to rents, it is recommended that, in line with the government national social rent policy, all council rents, social and affordable, will increase in 21-22 by the Consumer Price Index plus 1%. This also applies to the following 3 years. The table at paragraph 3.10 shows rent charges by property type, and members are advised that 43% of tenants receive housing benefit, and of these, 69% receive a full rebate and therefore pay nothing. For responsive repairs, the 21-22 budget is an estimated 7.7 million when compared to the 8.5 million for planned maintenance. In the HRA capital budget, we see this is a 47 to 53% split compared to a recommended split of 40 to 60%, and a review of the repairs service is planned in future years. The 21-22 budget for the HRA depreciation charges is 4.595 million that will be transferred into the major repairs reserve. With regards to value for money, the HRA is subject to review, as are other budgets, and members should note that any savings will release additional resources for housing stock. Paragraph 3.16 details the budget assumptions relevant to the draft HRA. An annual bad debt provision of 150,000 is included to mitigate the impact of welfare reforms and COVID-19, as explained at paragraph 3.17. Chair, the effective Treasury management is key to affordability and sustainability. Members know that Bassett Law inherited 26.9 million of the national housing debt as part of the 2012 self financing arrangements, and that this increased the HRA debt level to 96.5 million. I'm pleased to report that reductions over the years will produce on the 31st of March 2021 an estimated new total of 85.8 million, but this carries an annual interest rate of 3.9%. It is important that members know that for every additional 1 million borrowed, the cost to the HRA budget is a further 18,500 per annum. Therefore, Council has set an artificial debt cap of 132 million in the business plan in order to ensure it remains sustainable. This council is committed to investment in our housing stock, and yes, this will require an increase in borrowing to fund new houses, as detailed in the Capital Housing Programme. But there has to also be some room left for manoeuvre. Paragraph 3.20 shows the scheduled long-term debt repayments and associated reductions in interest built into the business plan. The proposed borrowing to finance new levels of capital investment can be found at paragraph 3.21. And as for reserves, the minimum working balance for 21-22 will remain at 1.3 million. Chair, this housing revenue account budget is balanced, it's viable and sustainable. It's designed to support the housing services Bassetlaw has planned for and deserves. There are 5 recommendations, Chair, from 7.1 to 7.5. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. I'll next turn to David Hill just to ask if there's anything further to add.
Just briefly, thank you, Chair. This is also similar to the last report, beginning to show the fruits of our labour over the last 2 years, in that now that we're beginning to see balances increase in the HRA, giving members more options for either investment or debt repayment or whatever it may be. It wasn't so long ago that the minimum balance of 1.3 million was breached, and it went under in one budget, certainly in my time, and that's in 4 years. We're now looking at a position in Appendix 1 where after 5 years, we're going to have a balance of 12.1 million on the forecast. So just to illustrate the impact of the reforms that have been happening over the last 2 or 3 years. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. There's been a significant step change, there's no doubt about it. I'll turn to members now and ask if there are any comments, contributions or observations. I can see that Councillor Shaw's indicated, so I'll turn to Councillor Shaw first.
Thank you, and thank you for this report. I just want to mention, under the provision of bad debts, the prudency of putting that in, but I would like to put on record to thank officers within Bassetlaw District Council Housing, how sensitively they work with residents around debt recovery and a whole range of approaches to support residents in Bassetlaw. As a district councillor with a large number of social housing in my ward, I support so many people, and they are really appreciative of the amount of work that district council colleagues put in to helping them with the crises that are happening that they don't plan for, but with the COVID and the universal credit. And so I want to put that on record, please, and thank everyone very much.
No, thank you very much indeed. As it's a matter of reality that we do have to make provision for bad debt. However, the way that in the background officers work with tenants on this is very, very important, and I know that a lot of tenants have found it very difficult, and we'll support them as much as possible with the difficulties they're experiencing. Are there any other comments, questions, observations at all? If not, I'll be minded to move to the recommendations as outlined on page 33 of the report. And if I could ask members of Cabinet if there is any dissent from those recommendations being approved. I'd take that as a no, in which case they are adopted. Thank you very much. Next, I'll turn to agenda item 4C, and that is the General Fund Capital Programme 2021 to 22, again running indicatively through to 25-26. It is a key decision, number 849, to be found at pages 37 through to 43. And at this point, I'll hand over to Councillor Evans to outline the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. As part of the overall strategy for capital, Council both restricts funding of capital schemes via revenue and minimises borrowing in order to limit pressure on the general fund. This means the capital programme is reliant on funding from capital receipts from the sale of assets, plus Section 106 contributions or external grants. Resources have now been reviewed and available funding identified for new capital schemes in 21-22 and for future years. Capital funding details can be found in Section 5 of this report. The current approved 5-year General Fund Capital Programme totals 24.1 million, of which 18.478 million relates to 2021 schemes and 5.623 million relates to schemes approved for the years 21-22, 24-25. The table at paragraph 4.3 details these approved schemes along with funding sources, whereas paragraph 5 details capital funding of new schemes from named available resources. For new general fund capital schemes, members will recall that in January 2020, Council approved 347,000 for provisional capital schemes to be included in the General Fund Capital Programme when enough capital receipts had been generated. These schemes, detailed in the table at paragraph 5.4, are now included in the 21-22 Capital Programme and will be financed from the remaining transfer of a New Homes bonus for 2019-20. I have to report that new capital bids have not been considered as part of this year's budget setting process because there are no surplus capital receipts. There are 2 further new proposals to be included in the General Fund Capital Budget. 500,000 is needed in 25-26 for vehicle and plant replacements to be funded by borrowing, and the Disabled Facilities Grant of 700,000 per annum will be added to the capital programme for 25-26, funded through the Better Care Fund. If approved, these proposals will increase the General Fund capital budget by 1.527 million, giving a new total of 25.648 million. For further clarity, Table 4 at paragraph 5.9 shows the current approved capital programme for 2021 totalling 18.478 million, the proposed capital programme for 21-22 totalling 1.723 million, and the indicative capital programme from 22-23 to 25-26 totalling 5.447 million, whereas Table 5 summarises the total value of the General Fund Capital Programme from 2021 to 25-26 for already approved schemes and any new approved proposals. Details of the proposed and indicative capital schemes are provided at Appendix A. Chair, there are 2 recommendations at 10.1 and 10.2. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Mr. Hill, is there anything you wish to add at all?
Yes, if I may, Chair. It looks rather a small capital programme compared to the HRA capital programme, and for probably the same reason why HRA have got the resources to be able to borrow. There's no such resources available, as you'll see when we get to the medium-term financial plan and indeed the budget next month in the general fund to be able to afford that. However, there will be schemes, I've no doubt, added as they come in, because what we don't do is include schemes that we haven't got funding for yet. So you'll see in one of the tables in 2021, there was quite a healthy programme of 18 million. And that's because schemes like Middleton's, where we got the funding in year, were bought into that programme. So it looks small at the moment, but during the year it will increase. And those changes are brought to members for members' approval at the quarterly report. So you'll see those in there. Other than that, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. I'll turn at this point to members asking if there is any comments, questions, observations at all in relation to this report. I can't see anyone indicating, in which case I'll be minded to simply move to bear in mind everything that's been said on the outline and the contents of the report. I'll be minded to move to the recommendation, therefore, at page 42, and ask Cabinet members if there is any dissent from those recommendations being adopted. Take that as a no, in which case they're therefore agreed. Thank you very much indeed. The next item I will turn to, again, a finance report. It is the medium-term financial plan, 2021 to 22 through to 2025-26. It is agenda item 4D. It is a key decision number 850 to be found at pages 45 through to 61. And I'll hand over to Councillor Evans again. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The medium-term financial plan is based on a number of financial principles and is, as always, the framework for the budget setting process. But this year, it has been prepared in acknowledgement of the financial pressures caused by COVID-19 and the current financial uncertainties. Members are well aware of government policy that's reduced funding to councils over the last 10 years. Hence, Bassetlaw has successfully employed an efficiency plan to reduce costs, increase income and achieve savings targets. It is true that the funding for 2021 has in effect been rolled forward to 21-22. It is also true that this council recognises the need to continue with its efficiency plan. The medium-term financial plan has to, by necessity, make a number of budget assumptions. One result of the pandemic has been volatility of both the consumer price index and the retail price index annual inflation rates. These have been factored into future projections as detailed at Appendix 1. Other budget assumptions include an annual pay award of 2%, contracts linked to the consumer price index or retail price index, and fees and charges linked to the consumer price index. Council has to consider available resources. We know that provisionally the 21-22 financial settlement is likely to be similar to that of 2021, and that the major reform of local government finance will be postponed. We also know the general domestic product has fallen in year by an estimated 11.3%, and that full recovery is not expected until 2022 at the earliest. The message is, colleagues, that the financial uncertainty continues, and we therefore have to make assumptions and estimates and utilise market intelligence. And the table at paragraph 4.3 outlines the expected financial settlement for 21-22 and the estimated funding available over the medium term. Members should note that this is again a 1-year settlement rolled forward, just as it was for 2021 from that previous year. The revenue support grant is expected to be the same as for 2021 plus inflation, and we believe population growth will not be taken into account and that the revenue support grant will not exist by 22-23. Regarding business rates, members are aware that Bassetlaw retains 40% of business rates collected, which is then subject to a tariff paid to government. Members also know that Bassetlaw is part of the Nottinghamshire business rates pool, from which 50% of the pool surplus is redistributed back to pool members. However, the medium-term financial plan will not include any such sums for future years until they have been formally agreed. Furthermore, there is a difficulty when forecasting income from retained business rates because of the uncertainty about existing government measures to support local businesses and if they will continue into 21-22. Currently, local authorities are reimbursed by government via the Section 31 grant to compensate for lost business rate income. The amount to be collected in 2021 is 36.9 million for Bassetlaw Council. As always, there are a number of risks that could affect the level of business rate income that's collected, and these are discussed from paragraph 4.14 to 4.17. The new homes bonus allocated on the number of new homes built and empty homes brought back into use was reduced in 2016 from a 6-year legacy payment to 4 years. It is believed the new homes bonus will cease after 21-22, as shown in the table at paragraph 4.18. Members know that in Bassetlaw, this money is used to fund the capital programme. Turning to council tax, there are a number of points to consider. The 2013 government change from council tax benefit to the local council tax reduction scheme meant that eligible residents no longer received a benefit that offset the cost of council tax. Instead, they receive a discount at source. This reduces the tax base for all precepting authorities, and for Bassetlaw, this meant a reduction of 3,704 Band D properties in the 2021 council tax base. Plus, housing growth is directly linked to growth in the tax base, whereas the table at paragraph 4.27 shows how the estimated tax base is offset by the number of council tax reduction claimants at Band D properties. And this shows that estimated future growth has reduced. As part of its financial strategy, Bassetlaw set an increase of £5 for 2021, thus complying with current legislation. This medium-term financial plan assumes an increase of £5 that will apply each year from 21 to 22 onwards. This is necessary to maintain financial stability and deliver council services. Bassetlaw's anticipated income from the £5 tax increase can be seen in the table at paragraph 4.29. And it is proposed to keep the collection rate for 21-22 at 98%. Council receives a number of specific grants as shown at paragraph 4.32, and they are expected to be lower than the 2021 levels. The extension of universal credit and transfer of an element of the housing benefit subsidy to DWP has left Council with a smaller gross expenditure amount because subsidy has been reduced, and this is further explained at paragraph 4.33. With regards to reserves and balances, it is necessary to ensure adequate reserves in support of the budget. For 21-22, the minimum working balance remains at 1 million. Council has a number of earmarked reserves as detailed in the table at paragraph 4.38, and some of which can be used to mitigate against potential future risks. A key principle of the MTFP is not to use reserves to balance pressure on the budget. However, it is highly likely that the negative financial impact of the pandemic will result in the use of general fund reserves to address the estimated forecast deficit of 600,000. Chair, Appendix 1 shows a forecast budget shortfall for the next 5 years of 1.16 million and summarised in the table at paragraph 5.1. Therefore, it is necessary to employ a strategy to bridge the funding gap focused on additional income and reduced expenditure, and these are explained in detail from paragraphs 5.3 to 6.2, and they should be regarded as a must-do if this council is to deliver on its strategic priorities. There are, Chair, 4 recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Mr. Hill, anything you wish to add at all?
Yes, a couple of points, Chair. Firstly, this report does not reflect the local government finance settlement, which arrived about 2 hours after we sent the report out. And we haven't adjusted it for a couple of reasons. Firstly, because it is only a provisional settlement. They announced the provisional settlement really late, and we couldn't have built it in, but because it was provisional, it may yet alter, and the consultation runs on until next week anyway. The second thing on the provisional settlement is when we've looked at it, it hardly alters anything. It's very much as we forecast. We knew it was a 1-year settlement, and most of the other figures remain unchanged apart from small inflationary adjustments. So when you see the budget report coming to the next cabinet meeting, you'll see something very similar with the bottom line very similar as well. The second thing I just want to say is it's been incredibly difficult to put this report together because of the uncertainties. I started writing down the unknowns and I stopped when I got to just over 30. There's so many things, and you know, and there's also the business rates reform and the business rates reset, which has been put back a year, so there's uncertainty over that for future years. There's the funding review, the fundamental funding review of public sector and local authorities. That's not come forward, and I haven't even gotten to Brexit and COVID. So it's been incredibly difficult, but we've got something meaningful and we've got something fairly accurate that will take us forward. I'm happy to answer any questions, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. It's quite a feat, I have to say, to have brought this report together with the level of uncertainty that there has been, and with a as you mentioned, the huge number of unknowns and the in-time direct challenges caused by the pandemic that have come as a sideways shock to everyone, and which is incredible in itself. So absolutely, thank you for bringing this together. I can see that the Chief Executive's indicated. So if it's all right, I'll turn to the Chief Executive next, and then turn to Cabinet colleagues.
Thank you, Chair. Just to underline what Mr. Hill's just said, I think if you look at the table in 4.18, which looks at the demise of the new homes bonus, where we know about what's going to happen, the council was able to plan for it and make it work. So in 2021, the amount of money that we got was 1.1 million. 2021-22, it's going down to 661, and then after that disappearing completely. And it just shows you that where we do know the parameters of that face us, we can deal with this. And I think if you then turn to Appendix 1 with the savings targets that are moving forward, it's really unhelpful in the sense that, as Mr. Hill said, there's just so many unknowns that we can't really sort of plan for them and have to make it up each year despite the projections. So where there is certainty, Chair, we can manage that and make the best of it. Where there isn't certainty, we can only do the best we can with what we've got. And that, I think, is the underlying theme of this. But if you go back to the situation on the new homes bonus, it was very clear what was going to happen. we've planned for that. That's not the same with other district councils, I have to say, in Nottinghamshire, who, despite the warnings, have kept the money in their base budget. This council has not done that and taken proactive steps to avoid it. And therefore, whilst the situation is unclear, I think Bassetlaw has made the best fist of it that it can. And hopefully there'll be more clarity in the future about what can and cannot be done. And then everybody will be able to work towards ensuring that the good financial management that the council has got is retained. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Dukes, I think is indicated first.
Yeah, thank you. I was pretty much going to say what the Chief Executive said. You know, where there is clarity, and I think we've heard a lot about that, a lot of that word, particularly over the last couple of weeks. Where there is clarity, things can get done, things can move forward, and people are sure of what they can do. You know, we're sitting with, using one of your favourite phrases, Chair. We're expecting officers to knit fog. It is ridiculous that we are having to spend so much time and effort trying to predict what a government might do. You know, we could do much more with what we've got if we were given things in advance and told things in advance. And I think that's true of everything that's happening at the moment, and as everything that's been happening over the last at least 3 years since I've been sitting in this cabinet, where we've had year on year where we're waiting and waiting and waiting for the information that we need in order to get the balance, get the budget sorted. And I think it's atrocious that we're in this situation again and again and again. As the Chief Executive said, when you've got some certainty, when you know what you need to plan for, when you know what you need to budget for, we at Bassetlaw have proven again and again that we are good at that. You know, we're in a much better position than a lot of councils because we are prudent. We are in a much better position than a lot of councils because our investments stay within the district. We don't buy car parks in Dubai or hotels in Newcastle. We invest in the people of Bassetlaw and in the businesses in Bassetlaw and in property in Bassetlaw to make sure that the place that we live in and that our residents live in is a better place for them to be here. So can I express my absolute gratitude to all officers and councillors who have been involved in setting this information under very, very difficult circumstances. Let's hope that we will get more clarity as we move forward. I'm not going to hold my breath on that one, otherwise you'll see me very blue very quickly. But I think we need to be chuntering on at government, central government, again and again to make sure that we get things in time and in the right order so that we can do our job here. Thank you.
No, thank you very much indeed. And there's a huge, when we're in control of events on the housing revenue account, we're making changes to bring more money and investment into our stock, into the place, into supporting our tenants. The huge amount of uncertainty that's generated or caused by government, and giving an amount of money 1 minute and then cutting it the next and cutting it the next and cutting it the next. You simply can't get things done that way. It's ridiculous. Sorry, I'll turn to Councillor Brown.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to, when I was thinking about this paper, I looked through it and I thought there's an absence of the B word here. And it wasn't until David did made his comments that he actually mentioned Brexit. So somebody had to. But I just wanted to ask, and I know probably it's another of those uncertainties, but is there any indication for the medium-term financial plan around goods, services, facilities, people, tourism, any of the other things that might knock us sideways, and all sorts of other people in the country as well? Is there any indication yet of any particular impact that we need to be aware of? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll turn to Mr. Hill on that first, if that's all right. David.
Yeah, we've looked very carefully at that, Councillor Brown, and tried to work out whether there will be anything. We can't see anything at the moment. Nothing significant. There will be small pockets in environmental health, meat inspections, all sorts of different things that may cause us small, insignificant hiccups, but nothing big. You'll see when we get to the Treasury Management Strategy and Policy, it's far more focus on Brexit and what it might mean for the money markets and where we can lend, where we can borrow, what happens with lending to different countries, because we do access Handelsbank, for example, and different banks overseas. So there will be some focus in the Treasury Management Policy. If there's anywhere it's going to hit us, it's going to be there on the adverse interest rates or lack of ability to borrow or lend abroad. So we've got an eye on it, but we think it's in there, and you'll see it in the later report.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments, observations, contributions at this point? If not, I'd like to express my sincere thanks for the work to bring this report together. And I'll move to the recommendations at page 59 of the report and ask if there's any dissent from those recommendations. And I take that as a no, in which case they'll be they're approved and agreed. The final item, sorry, I believe it's the final item, is the agenda item 4E, which is the calculation of the council tax base 2021 to 2022, key decision number 851, to be found at pages 63 to 69, and this is rather the underpinnings of the of quite a few things. So I'll defer to Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Chair. The council tax base is a measure of the number of dwellings on which council tax is chargeable and is used to calculate the authority's Band D council tax. It is also used to determine the respective levies for Nottinghamshire County Council, the Nottinghamshire Police and Crime Commissioner and Combined Fire Authority, as well as the 56 town and parish councils in Bassetlaw. Members are aware that properties are placed in different property bands based on the value of that property, and that the band is then used to determine the council tax levied per property. Also that the council's basic tax figure is calculated in respect of Band D, and other bands are then calculated as a fraction of the tax at Band D. When it comes to the calculations for the tax base, this requires identification of the number of properties liable to be levied and the banding in which the properties are placed, followed by the application of the relevant exemptions and discounts, including the local council tax reduction scheme and any surcharges and banding reductions. The figures are then adjusted to the number of Band D equivalents by applying the proportion as shown at paragraph 3.7. This calculation process is further explained at Appendix 1, which shows that from an initial 53,825 dwellings in Bassetlaw, once adjustments have been applied, a tax base figure of 36,387 properties is produced. However, the final Band D equivalent figure is then further adjusted to allow for growth of housing stock, anticipated losses on collection, and any other relevant foreseen adjustments. This gives a final tax base figure of 35,771.49 Band D properties, which shows an increase in Band D equivalents of 398 compared to 2021. And I remind members there is a long-term empty premium of 100% council tax payable on properties that have been empty more than 2 years. Chair, there are 3 recommendations at 6.1, 6.2 and 6.3.
Thank you, Thank you very much. Mr. Hill.
Yes, thanks. This is much better than we reported earlier in the year. In April and May, in the early days of COVID-19, we were reporting in COVID briefings that there may not be any increase in the council tax base at all, purely because of the impact of people dropping onto the local council tax reduction scheme and the impact that had on it. However, that's more than been outweighed. That has happened. It's been more than outweighed by the new build in the area. So now we've ended up with 398 equivalent increase in band properties, which is lower. It's about 0.5% lower than previous years, but nevertheless, given the circumstances, it's a good news story. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you very much. It is a very positive story, and I know that there was a fair degree of nervousness as to the way that the housing market was going to react and where things are. I hope that the positive picture continues and that we won't see a downturn. But I do know that there's a fair degree of confidence in the local housing market as well. So that it's quite a positive picture, and we have a lot of interest in development in the area. So I do hope that that continues. Any comments, questions, observations in relation to this item? I'll take that as a no, in which case the recommendation is to be found at page 66 of the report. There are 3, 6, 1, 2 and 3, and I'll ask if there's any dissent from those recommendations. I'll take that as a no, and those are agreed. There are no items to discuss in private this evening, and agenda item 5 is any other business considered to be urgent. I have to say that none's been brought to my attention, and so at this point I'd like to thank everyone for their attendance and contributions and the huge amount of work that goes into bringing these reports forward, and I will draw the meeting to an end and wish everyone a good evening. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Castor, you may
Bye.
stop the live stream.